The right agent can add 6 figures to your sale. The wrong one can cost you just as much. Today, we're going to break down when to engage this agent and how to choose the right one to sell your next property. All right, guys, welcome back to Peter Kelly Property. We've got some programming updates. So as everyone knows, across on the YouTube channel, we deliver 2 episodes per week. We're going to 3. The people have spoken. We're going to 3 episodes per week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The Monday and Friday ones will be a bit more property centric, and we've got the development type ones on the Wednesday. So pumped to be delivering some more content to you guys 3 times a week. How good's that? Hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of them. All right, guys, let's get into today's episode. Before we talk about appointing your agent, let's talk about what real estate agents do. Now, real estate agents are employed. We engage them to be local market experts. One, so super important that an agent can give you real-time info and have a really good handle on your local marketplace, because you need your agent to know where your property sits as a value proposition inside your suburb, inside your market. The agent gets that wrong, thinks your property's worth more than it is. That can hurt its time on market, can mean it stays on market for too long, means it gets stale, means it doesn't sell well, or if he or she thinks it's worth too little, well then potentially you might be underselling it as well. So your agent, very important, understanding your local market and where your product sits inside that. Now, they need to be able to market the property, show it in its best light. They will advise you on this. So super important that they advise you what things might be able to be done to the property to showcase it best as possible. They will obviously open the property. They will show buyers through. They will market it. They will make phone calls. They will follow people up. They will do their best to attract as much interest to your property as possible. Obviously using platforms like Domain, realestate.com, all those standard ones, but also going out to their databases. So probably important that you are using an agent that does do a fair few deals in the area. I think that's a great place to start because they've got a lot of touch points with buyers, with other landowners and property owners, so they can already go out to an existing database of people they know in your area. So they've got a bit of a shortcut in getting to the people that may be interested in your property because they've sold a couple of others in recent times in your area. Now, also another massive one that they need to do on behalf of a vendor is be a great negotiator. Sometimes it's not as easy as standing on a door for 4 weeks, having an auction, thank you, sold. Sometimes and often it isn't as easy as that, especially in tough markets like we are at the moment. So, super important that they can negotiate. Sometimes they may not have plenty of buyers interested in the property, and it may not be as easy as this bid gets above the vendor's reserve and sells. Sometimes they need to be quite crafty and be able to negotiate and be able to get a buyer up when there may not be exactly that much competition, but able to get them up by selling value in the property, explaining to the buyer that this is one of a kind, there's not many else coming up. All these sorts of things that'll get a buyer to pay more and essentially exhaust that buyer and exhaust that buyer's budget on your property. Super important that they're working very hard for you as the vendor. So there you go. So they need to be able to market it, follow up buyers, negotiate with buyers, get the best selling price, but then also have a really good handle on where your property sits as a value proposition inside the local market, because buyers have never been more educated. They will understand where your property sits inside all these other ones that have sold or are potentially about to be sold in your market. So an educated agent that has boots on the ground, is meeting people every weekend, super important. All right, guys, now picking the right agent. So like I said, those tasks I mentioned earlier, we need to find the agent that's going to do those really well. Do those really well for you and your property. Okay, so when we're talking about doing the market research and understanding your local area, like I said, we need an agent that understands where we sit in the market. Now, this is probably a good time to point out, some people get carried away with the highest price, the agent that's telling them the highest price. So speak to multiple agents, love that. Speak to 3 or 4 of the agents that you think do the most business in the area, that you might have had interactions with in the past, that you might have been recommended to in the past. Make sure they're doing a bit of work in the area, super important. But then don't get carried away with the agent that tells you what you want to hear, being the greedy vendor you are. Make sure you don't get carried away with the agent that thinks it's worth more than all the other agents, okay? So super important. And also, do a bit of research yourself. Appreciate what you think it might be worth, and then take on board what the 3 to 4 agents have suggested, and what you'll probably find it's somewhere in the middle. Now, the agents that's probably telling you the most, there's every chance that they might be telling you the most to get you caught up with them to win your business, and then it's potentially going to be a bad experience because they've told you what you wanted to hear to win the business. You give the business to them, then your property sits on the market for too long because buyers know it's worth too much. They can't achieve that price, sits on the market for too long. Slowly but surely, your property will come down in price, but it's been on the market for so long that the market thinks there's a bit of a smell to it and it becomes a bit stale and then hard to sell. Then potentially you end up selling it for less than you maybe would have if you had have hit the right number and the right value from the outset with the agent who actually had their information right. Okay, so super important we don't get caught up in the agent that's going to tell us it's worth the most, because you know what? The agent's not going to be the one that's going to buy it. The market buys it. So super important that you pick an agent that has a good handle on what it's worth, but then has a great ability to market it and put it to the market and put it to the people, create interest, create competition, because that's how you get your number to where you want to be and hopefully surpass where you want to be. But you need the agent that's going to be able to market it and get it to that point. And then obviously, like I said earlier, a great negotiator. So super important, your agent has the ability to be able to negotiate, and sometimes with not many tools at their disposal, because it might be a bad market, they need to be able to negotiate and get your price that you want, and a fair price and a price that you're excited by through their negotiation skills. So super important that your agent can do that. I think another great way is potentially talking to a couple of past clients from that agent, potentially looking up online, going, hey, I saw you sold XYZ Street, 123 Avenue, and can I speak to those clients and essentially speak to them and hear how that agent delivered in that campaign, okay? What was their communication like? How are their negotiation skills? How did they market your property? You know, did they meet your expectations? Okay, so super important that you can potentially speak to a couple of past clients. I think that's a great way to hear, you know, quite concisely and great information and recent information on how that particular agent performed. So that's what we're looking for, guys. That ability to market your property best they can, having that deep market insights. Super important that you price your property correctly from the start to get that interest, to get the punters involved, to get the interest and create competition. If your agent gets the pricing wrong, too low, you're going to attract the wrong buyers. Too high, you're going to attract no buyers. So super important they know what they're doing. So we can look at historical data for the last 6 months to look at what the comparable sales to your product have sold for. But in saying that, 6 months is a long time. It's a long time in a marketplace. Maybe the market's cooled. You need an agent with their finger on the pulse to know that, hey, you know what? Based on 6 months of comparable sales, your property sits here, but based on where we are in the market now, your property might be there. Pricing it wrong is a danger. So, like I say, and I'm banging on about it, but an agent that appreciates and understands where the value lies on your product. And all right, guys, before we wrap up, let's talk about that C word, commission, okay? So don't get caught up with your cheapest agent either. And the most expensive agent, you know, that's a hard one to go as well. So again, like understanding where your agent sits on price, could be somewhere in the middle if you do a nice 3 to 4 agent canvas. When it comes to commissions, make sure you're not going with the cheapest guy, okay? That's whether you're building, everyone knows we do a lot of development, building, real estate agents commission, don't go the cheapest guy or girl, okay? Now, like I said, the most expensive one, that's a hard pill to swallow as well. Try and see where the value sits, because the cheapest agent will probably lack in other areas, and that's why they're the cheapest agent. So you do get what you pay for. And also, while I'm thinking about it, littlefishnetwork.com.au, a lot of this information that I'm saying, the education that I'm talking about, there's people inside the Little Fish Network that you can hit up, you can ask about experiences in certain agents, in certain locations, all this sort of stuff. And you can bounce things back and forth, and that's what we're seeing every day inside the Little Fish Network. And there's amazing educational tools in there as well, which cover a bit of this sort of stuff, all this sort of stuff. So get in there, littlefish.com.au. Thank me later. So make sure you jump in there and go through it and ask all the questions in there. And all right, guys, again, when we're talking about commission, okay, and not going the cheapest, a quick story. A couple of weeks ago, an agent, I won't name his name, he was a ripper, did a great job in a tough market, okay? Paid fair commission, not too low, not too high, that's fine. But this is a story based on picking the right agent, not picking the commission, not picking the price, okay? The value you can get with a good agent will dwarf a commission here, a commission there, a 0.2 or 0.3%. It will genuinely dwarf it. And this was an agent that was selling a property for us. It's a rough market. His ability to negotiate over and above our client's expectation. Most often, an agent will negotiate to where the vendor's reserve is. And then once they get to a point where buyer and vendor are together and there's a deal to be done there, on a lot of occasions, the agent will get the deal done, okay? Which I understand. That's fine. This particular agent saw an opportunity to negotiate on behalf of their vendor, which is who they work for. Don't forget that. Agents work for vendors. He saw an opportunity to essentially negotiate more with the buyer and essentially get more from the buyer, get the buyer to pay more to make more money for the client, which is a rare thing that you see. So that's just an example of how a good agent doesn't just do enough, doesn't just get enough done. When they see it's there to be done and they can negotiate more for their client, because again, they work for the vendor. Some people get a bit confused that agents work for buyers and vendors, and who do they work for? They work for the vendor, full stop. He saw an opportunity to go a bit harder because he saw an opportunity to be able to negotiate more for his client. So essentially, what he negotiated would have eclipsed any 0.5, 0.2 in the commission structure. So again, pick the right agent. Don't get too bogged down with the commission. Yes, if you've got an array of commissions and you want the highest agent with the highest commission because you think they're the best agent, potentially there's some negotiation there to get them a bit closer to the rest of the pack. But remember, the most important thing, the best agent who is going to do best by their vendor. And you can use that whole episode, guys, to figure out who's going to be the best agent for you and your product and your property, putting it on the market. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thanks for hanging around this long. I know you guys that are still here. I know who you are, so really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Really appreciate the support. And make sure you jump in the littlefishnetwork.com.au. I'm in there, the team's in there. There's a lot of great interactions happening in there, so that's a great place to interact and maybe ask me some more questions. But really appreciate you guys hanging around. This is why we do it. The guys that are still here and girls that are still here, that's why we do it. So love you all. And also, if you're looking to a knockdown rebuild, dual occupancy, or multi-unit development site, or get inside the network, or do buyer's advocacy, or anything like that, jump in, book a consultation with myself, and we can talk it through, see if we can be of any assistance. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Let's go.